A very good evening. Today in our sessions, we shall be discussing about memos. Memos are an internal document which is used in business, which means that it is used for internal communication. A memo is not like a contract which has legal implications, which means that on the basis of a contract, we can be taken to court. But for writing a memo, there are no such legal implications. There are various kinds of memos, and in this discussion, we shall be reviewing some of these. Like the first one is what we call the request memo. The objective of a request memo is to gain a favorable response to any kind of request. The memo must obviously be written in a convincing way, and we shall see an example of both a poorly written request memo, and then we shall see an example of a well-written request memo. So let's start with a poorly written request memo here. So you can see that this memo, which is not very well written, it has just 2 lines. The first 4 lines, of course, is the general format, where you have the date, the name of the sender, and the recipient, and of course the subject. But the crux of the memo lies in those 2 lines, which you can see at the bottom, which says, "May I attend the time management seminar that is being offered by the Chamber of Commerce next Thursday?" And it ends with a thanks. Now, while some people may say that this is a direct and clear memo, but obviously from the recipient's or the decision maker's point of view, it's not a very good memo, because this memo will not help the recipient to take a decision. So naturally, the objective of the memo will fail. On the other hand, if you look at the memo which you see now, written by the same person, has much more details. It is comprehensive. It says that the seminar is conducted by professors of a good university. It also indicates that the pricing is very low. It's just 500 rupees for the entire day. So it justifies the cost. And at the same time, it also justifies the reason for attendance, because if you look at the second paragraph, it says as to why the seminar would be required. It says that the personal cutback 6 months ago happened, and hence this gentleman, Mr. Humayun, he has been working without an assistant, right? And so he feels, and aptly so, that a time management seminar may just be the right intervention that one may be looking at. Okay, and he has also graciously attached the brochure, which has all the contents, and it definitely highlights the fact that the topics are very productivity oriented. Okay, he further goes on to justify the cost. He says that though this seminar is charged 500, but similar seminars are charged anything between 2,000 and 2,500 per day. And not just that, they are also located elsewhere, which means that it entails some travel and hotel expenses. Right. And last but not the least, he signs up by indicating when he needs the approval. So he tells the authority very clearly, spells it out, that though there is a deadline, but there is also a rush given the low pricing and the good offer. Okay, and so he very clearly mentions as to when he needs the approval. So request is clearly stated, which is one of the prime requirements of a request memo. The reasons for the request are well presented. Financial costs are explained. All expenses are justified. Recommendations for action should be presented. Throughout the memo, tact and diplomacy should be used. And if the memo is obviously persuasively written, it will get a go ahead. And most expectedly, we can expect a yes from the authority as far as this memo is concerned. Right. Now let us take a look at another kind of memo, and this is what we call the confirmation memo. It is designed to confirm in writing something that has been agreed verbally. For example, we may take the case of, let's say, a general manager or a sales manager who promises to provide sales coverage to 6 other cities. But for this, he requires the support of more people, more salespeople. Okay, so he needs to therefore get this approved or confirmed from the general manager. Right? So when the general manager and the sales manager agree on this plan, it makes sense that there is a confirmatory memo so that people are on the same line. Okay, so here is an example of such a memo written to one Mr. Narayan Murthy, and it comes from Krishna Murli. Subject indicator, hiring new sales people, right? And then one by one, the specific points are mentioned. 3 new salespeople from southern region are to be hired. These salespeople will be on board from so-and-so to so-and-so. The dates are indicated. The people who would be hired, whatever compensation needs to be given to them, that has been indicated. Plus the commission has been indicated. Okay. And then it says the 3 new people will spend the first month in the field where they will learn how we sell our product line. And then they will each be given a territory. Okay. So these are the territories which needs to be covered: Hyderabad, Vijayawada, okay, Rajamundry, Guntur, okay, Vaishakapatnam, and Kakinada. So since the Hyderabad and Vijayawada territory is large, so that's the reason why he suggests, the sales manager suggests, that the salesperson will need to commute by car between these two cities. So there has to be some provision for that. If first-year sales in Andhra Pradesh do not meet the sales forecast submitted by the marketing research people, then it says that we will reassign the 3 salespeople. Okay, one will handle Hyderabad, Vijayawada, Guntur, and the second would be responsible for the other 3 locations. And the third will be moved to Tamil Nadu and work out of the Chennai office. If you have any questions, call me. If I do not hear from you within a week, I shall assume that the memo accurately reflects our conversation and you're taking steps to hire these 3 salespeople. So we see that in the case of a confirmation memo, we need to be specific about the major points that were discussed and verbally agreed to. We need to enumerate the major points to establish them and allow easy reference so that future discussions can take place. And of course, last but not the least, we must encourage feedback on any point that may have been misunderstood, okay, or some clarification may be sought. Now, all of these we find have been followed by this example, the illustration. Krishnamurli raises the major points that were discussed and agreed upon. He then goes on to outline the 5 major points he wants the sales manager to understand. Okay, and by numbering them, he also ensures that they are equally emphasized. Okay, so we find therefore that all the discussion points have been given equal emphasis. And last but not the least, you have also seen that in case some changes are required, some clarifications are sought, so he has not made this a close-ended communication, right? Which is an important part of a confirmation memo, because whenever you jot down the discussion points of a meeting, there is always some issue. Some person may want something to be rewritten. Some poor person may want that something which was discussed but has not been added to be incorporated. So there are those points which are with those issues which always come up during writing a confirmation memo. This is akin to writing minutes of a meeting, which we will be talking about also subsequently. Right. Let us take a look at another type of memo, which is the what is called the report memo, and a periodic report memo rather. So a periodic report memo is particularly apt in the case of sales, where you need to give your quarterly reports to the authorities, either to the branch head or maybe to some regional office. And these memos have to be written frequently. So in most cases, we find that there is a pre-designed format, okay, and you just need to put in the data. So the memo should be designed as a fill-in form where data could be entered quickly, because we don't have the time to do this over and over again. The form should be designed so that it can be duplicated and can be reused for future months or quarters or weeks. We don't know what is the frequency of these reports. And if narrative or descriptive commentary is necessary, there has to be a provision for that also. Now, if we look at this illustration here, this is a horrible example of a sales report or a periodic report memo. As you can see, all the data has been clubbed together. That's the first impression that you get without even reading a line. And then when you start reading, you find that it is really difficult for you to make any kind of assessment, any kind of understanding. Says during the first quarter, Karnataka area, Ramesh made sales of so and so. This was an increase of so and so over the first quarter of the last year. Then he talks about the other sales chap called Parek, right? So the idea, of course, is to make some comparison, okay, or an overall assessment, but all that is not possible, okay, and in this case, right? So this obviously is very difficult to read. There's a huge readability problem here, okay. You have a problem in grasping, and of course, the periodic reports, one of the key objective is to make comparisons, either with the previous month or amongst the professionals or practitioners who are involved. Okay. Now, if we look at the better example after this, this shows you how it should be. Okay, so we have the yearly comparison. Okay, and again, we have divided this on the basis of region. So we have Kerala, Karnataka, T. Ramesh, C Parekh, A Bharat, right? So their performances, their sales reports, their achievements have been indicated on the basis of this year and the previous year, and also gives an indication in the next columns regarding whether there've been an increase or decrease. And then the same applies for another region like Tamil Nadu, okay, where the chaps who are involved there, their details have been given. Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Orissa, their details have been given. Okay, and additional notes have also been given, like somebody who's been sick for 4 years, that has been indicated. In case some data has not been given from the current year, so that has been indicated that this is his first year, so he has no record of previous years. So all of that is there, right? So this is a very good, illustration of a periodic memo, which is concise, crisp, and something which you can immediately, make comparisons. So the decision maker doesn't have to wait even a minute to figure out whether this is the memo which he'll be requiring. Okay, so this is how a periodic report should be written. Okay, we will discuss one last memo today, and that is the ideas and suggestion memos. Sometimes memos are just used for the sake of getting new ideas. Okay, managers ask their subordinates for suggestions because there are situations where you need to, get suggestions. Currently, we are in such a situation where a global pandemic has unsettled business across the world. So under such circumstances, so once things start settling down a little bit, subordinates will be asked for such suggestions as to what could be done, how things can be revived. Okay, so we find here that such a format is also available in a business written communication scene, and this is what we call the ideas and suggestions memo. Such memos should always begin with a very positive note, okay, no matter how negative the scenario is, as it is currently. Okay, and then you have to tactfully present the suggestions. Okay, you have to group the ideas according to some subject. Okay, so that it's easy for the decision maker or the recipient to read. You should not be straying from any point, have to be very specific. Okay, and let us now take a look at an example of a memo, an illustration memo. And it's written by one Krishna Parthasarathi. To Krishna Parthasarathi from Seema Paul, suggestions for reducing absenteeism and turnover. Thank you for asking me for suggestions regarding how we can reduce absenteeism and turnover. I think some of the areas we would examine include competitive salaries, benefit package, job redesign, and union relations. I am unsure that there are many other areas that warrant attention, and you know them a lot better than I do. I simply throw these out as some that should be considered. I'll be more than happy to go along with whatever you decide to. Okay, so naturally, I think it doesn't take much time to, kind of put this aside as a memo which, though seeks to give suggestions, have not been written in the right way. Okay, so on the contrary, this is how a memo should be written. Whatever steps that need to be taken, they have highlighted one by one. So there's competitive salaries, there's a benefit package, there's a raw job redesign. So in most jobs, we are paying competitive salaries as sales. However, we are below industry average in our wages rates for incoming secretarial help and for unit managers. So the problem has been identified. So she says where things need to change. Benefit package again, it has been reviewed, says that our health benefit package is too limited. Coverage of major medical problems such as hospital confinement is excellent. However, the package provides only minimal assistance for routine expenses such as prescription medicines or doctor's visits. Okay, so again, a reasonable assessment in that area. Job redesign also, now clearly more instructions, more recommendations have been given. So say start giving the workers greater autonomy over their work, increase the amount of self-feedback, investigate the value of installing quality circles throughout the organization. Then you have the union interface, says meet with the union representatives, discuss what we want to, form a committee with the union representation. And if you would like to discuss any of these ideas, please give a call. So, so we see that compared to the previous example, this is a much more elaborate attempt where the ideas have been clubbed according to the subject that we are talking about. Okay, what exactly is the problem that the author has felt is there in that particular area that has been highlighted, and also what could be done. And again, a very open-ended, positive, memo where ideas have been sought on the ideas, right? So which means that the author is asking the recipient as to what all could be added. Right, so we will continue this in our next session.